Greetings, my name is Guy Dauncey, and this is the show Change the World, where, as you'll know if you've been following this show, I like to invite guests on who are thinking about big solutions for the future, big positive ideas, new visions for the future. And today is a little bit different, because today we're going to have a debate about the future of the Esquimalt and Nanaimo corridor, the E&N Rail corridor. To do that, I've got two guests, Judith Sayers and Al Craighead. So let me introduce you both first. Al is a former City of Victoria councillor, CRD director and BC Transit board member. And in 1996, you chaired the CRD advisory group for a provincial study of routes for light rail transit.
In the CRD.
In the CRD. Dr. Judith Sayers is a member and past elected chief and chief negotiator for the, oh my goodness, Hupakasath? Is that good? Hupakasath. Oh, now I got it wrong again. Tell me, let me get it right.
Hupachathas.
Hupachathas, First Nation in Port Alberni.
Right.
You are the strategic advisor to First Nations and corporations and an adjunct professor with the Peter Gustafson School of Business at UVic in Victoria. You got a business and law degree and honorary degree in law at Queen's University and serve on the board of New Relationship Trust Foundation and the Clean Energy BC. And you're a founder director of the Island Corridor Foundation. That's right. Has worked hard with a great team to secure the rail line from Victoria to Courtenay and from Parksville to Port Alberni, committed to returning rail to Vancouver Island for passenger, freight and tourism. Now I'm going to be the moderator for this and invite each of my guests to have 5 minutes to explain their vision for the future of the corridor, and then we'll have a good old ding-dong debate. So Judith, why don't you start with the argument for the corridor being a railway?
Well, many years ago, CPR wanted to leave the island. It was going to cut up the railway and sell parcels to everybody. And there was a movement of people that said, no, we want rail to remain on Vancouver Island. So for many years, we tried to get the railway from CPR and Rail America, which we did.
Because if it was cut up, it's lost forever.
It'd be gone forever.
Yes.
And so everybody wanted to continue rail. They wanted to have the continuous corridor, connecting communities was our theme. Yeah. So we acquired the railway and we incorporated a foundation, and the foundation's purpose is, number one, is to restore rail, is to keep rail on Vancouver Island, passenger and freight. Right. And the other, well, of course we have 8 purposes, but the second purpose is for trails.
Right, so this is the Island Corridor Foundation.
That's right.
It's a non-profit?
It's a non-profit, yes. And we own the railway.
Right.
And the railway is around 300 kilometers, Victoria to Courtenay, Parksville into Port Alberni.
Yes.
And so that's our mandate. Right. That's our constitution. That's what we live under. Right. And so that's our purposes. Yeah. And so as board of directors, it's our fiduciary duties to carry out right. the objects of the society. And
the train stopped running 5 years ago or 8 years ago, somewhere around there.
Yeah, 5 years.
So what is happening with your duty, your vision to try and get the train running again?
Well, we certainly haven't given up.
Right.
You know, we faced many, many challenges trying to find the funding to improve the railway. When we took over the railway, we knew there was a lot of work.
Yes.
And you know, we were trying to find money, and we almost had that money, and then the Nanaimo First Nation launched a lawsuit against us, and the federal government didn't want to give us money until we resolved it. So the last few right. years we've been halted from that, because we were just that close. The Harper government was going to sign off on the money, there was an election, and then it all had to start again.
So that's the First Nation in Lanceville, I believe, area?
In Nanaimo.
Nanaimo.
Yeah. Who
basically, if I remember right, they're saying if there's no railway, we want the land given back to us. So then you'd lose the corridor.
That's right.
That
well, that portion of it.
That portion of it, but yes.
Yeah. But we have 105 kilometers of trails
yes.
along the railway already.
Of cycling and hiking trails.
Yes, yes. And you know, we do both.
Right.
And we think that we can do both, yes. and that's our mandate, is to do both. There's not one part of the island yeah. where we don't have rails and trails, and you know, the vision is to have a trail where we can. I mean, there's some places physically that's impossible yeah. to have a trail along the railway, but you know, most places our property is about 100 feet, and yeah. in other places it's much yeah. larger. And so with our operator, which is Southern Vancouver Island Railway, they designed standards to do rails and trails. Yeah. So there's safety for the people walking or cycling, and then you know, then we can run yeah. the railway safely. Right. So we have many, many partnerships with the yeah. regional districts and different community groups to allow them to use the trails along the rail.
Okay, so with the current grant application, or financial applications, would that see railway restored all the way from Victoria to Courtenay and Port Alberni, all the way?
Yes, but we were doing it in a phased approach. So
Okay.
we were going to be asking for money for Victoria to Nanaimo, and then still try and resolve this issue with Stanawas, and then we'll move it into Courtenay.
Okay.
And of course, Port Alberni will be the third phase of that.
And would you need an operating subsidy as well as sort of grant to sort of repair the tracks?
Well, we have agreements with VIA.
Yeah.
And we did have an agreement with them with a small subsidy. That took almost 3 years to negotiate, which was another delay because VIA certainly didn't want to keep the rail going on Vancouver Island, even though it was the only railway in Canada that was actually making money.
Right.
And yeah, so we've had many barriers and issues that we've had to resolve, and at no time have we ever lost sight of returning rail.
And if it's Victoria to Nanaimo, would that be from Nanaimo for commuters south or from Victoria north for tourists? Would it be, which is it, or both?
Well, our plan is to run it 3 times. So Nanaimo to Victoria, Victoria to Nanaimo, and then back into Victoria in a day.
Okay.
So then people have that ability to move back and forth.
So you could commute down in the morning, do a day trip up, and then commute back at night.
So part of our agreement with VIA was that we would have the opportunity to dictate the schedule. Before they used to dictate it to us from Montreal, and of course it went the wrong way, and it wasn't possible. But even when it was running the wrong way, SVI had been able to make a profit. I mean, they were able to, they were increasing the ridership. And so, the trains that we've got that will be coming to us, so we'll be able to put on bikes. So you can get on in Victoria and then go down to Duncan and then go do, the trestle and do whatever you want. Get back on the train with your bikes and because we haven't had that ability to now. So we're really working with community groups to try and allow people to use as much as possible the corridor. I mean, that's what it was for. That's what it was intended for.
Cool. So now let me turn to Al Craighead for the vision of the corridor as a bikeway without trains.
Yeah, and I want to say, first of all, I didn't realise Judith was part of the effort to save the corridor, but I really have to congratulate her on that because that was an amazing effort and so worthwhile. However, as a former serious supporter of the railway, I have to say that when I actually look at the numbers, there was a study done 2009 by IBI. I can't really any longer support the idea because of the numbers don't really support it.
You mean the cost?
The cost, the numbers, the passenger numbers, etc. Well, I'll give you an example of that. On some of the websites that are where the supporters of the E&N are talking to one another, the Borders Railway in Scotland is one that they bring up as an example. Well, the Borders Railway has well over 1 million passengers a year, and it travels at 150 kilometres an hour.
That's 1,500 every day, or 2,000. It's kind of more than that.
It would be, yes. So that's why it's successful. It is successful. It's the reason that they're talking about it is it was brought back into service after 50 years out of service. Right. And there was a lot of controversy. But it was successful because it runs beside a motorway, it's straight, and it can do these speeds. And that's really why it's successful, because it goes faster than a car.
Yeah. So you're thinking if the railway's going to be always too expensive, turn it into a complete bikeway and trail for pedestrians?
Exactly, and if you can imagine what that would do for the island economy, one of the things that's often talked about with the E&N is the potential for freight, and the IBI report mentions coal and it mentions lumber, but the last coal mine closed a long time ago, and we're sitting beside one that closed about 50 years ago, the Wellington coal mine, so we don't really think that's viable in the future. It's one of the ifs that would have to be true for the E&N to be viable.
Right.
So the other thing you can look at, as you mentioned earlier, the subsidy. The IBI study did look at 3 other small railways, not the same as E&N, but similar, and they came up with an average subsidy of $10 per passenger trip, which is reasonable. All transportation is subsidised. All public transportation is subsidised. What IBI said for the Victoria to Langford section of the E&N, the subsidy would be $50 per passenger trip if the traffic remained about the same at 40,000 people a day. So there's a big difference between 40,000 a day and what runs in the Scottish example. It's a totally different ball game, so it's not a fair comparison. And when we look at what it costs to build these things, you're going to see all kinds of estimates out there about what it costs to build the E&N back up to a usable modern railway, and it's pretty high, it's pretty steep. But as Judith says, they want to do it in sections, and that would be a sensible approach if it was a worthwhile project. I believe the cost to do Victoria to Duncan, which is comparable in distance to the Borders Railway, would be about 100 and something million, just over 100 million. It would work out to about 2 million a kilometre.
Right, and that would include making the bridges safe?
No, it wouldn't. The IBI did not include making the bridges safe or the road crossings. There's 240 road crossings. Now, when the E&N was constructed, it was constructed in the day of horse wagons. That was the method of transportation. So many of the roads weren't there, but they're there now. And road crossings, grade separations, as they're called, are very expensive. And it hasn't ever, as far as I know, been costed.
Right.
Judith may know otherwise, but I haven't seen any costing for that. In fact, haven't really seen a business plan for the E&N that includes all these things. How many people, how much cargo, where to, at what speed, and at what cost, and what subsidies needed.
Yeah. So leaving aside the critique of it, what's your vision of it as a bikeway?
Let me just give you a couple more numbers, and then you'll see why I'm advocating bikeway. Basically, the 2 million a kilometre cost would probably, I don't know what Judith thinks the numbers would be perhaps, but I would say they're probably not going to be much different from 40,000 a year. That's probably, the IBI study says probably about
40,000, clarify, of?
40,000 passenger trips.
For a whole year? Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
If you look at the Galloping Goose in Victoria, which is a multi-user trail built on an old railway track, but they had to take the track away, and the reason for that is there isn't enough room to do it the whole way, exactly as Judith said. There's about 41 places within the Nanaimo region where you'd have to break the trail up, and that completely destroys the idea of a continuous trail.
Right.
But if you look at the cost of servicing this trail, or the cost of actually building it, 1,500 people a day use the Galloping Goose, cycling. 1,500 a day. That's 500,000 a year.
Yes.
And the cost per kilometre to build it, 2 million a kilometre for the E&N.
Yes.
And about 57,000 a kilometre for the trail. That's from the CRD. And that also does not include the cost of bridges and road crossings. But for a bicycle trail, you don't really need to do much with the bridges. They'll hold a bicycle quite easily, but not a heavy-duty rail in some cases.
A fraction of the cost, then?
Very small fraction of the cost. The economic benefits of rails to trails, and there's lots of studies out there, the multiplier effects can be 2, 3, 4 times the cost of what you're actually getting.
And explain what's a multiplier effect?
Multiplier cost is you have your upfront costs, your hard costs to build the thing, and then you advertise it, and then the communities benefit in all sorts of ways, from tourism, from merchandising. There's lots of examples in the United States.
And some of that would be true for the railway as well, people getting off at the stations and tourists.
It absolutely would be, but we've got 40,000 for the railway. We've already got 1,500 a day for the Galloping Goose. And the potential of this trail is unbelievable. I've never seen another example in the world of the potential. It's really amazing. And I think everybody would agree with that, I'm sure.
So, well, great. Judith, do you have questions to put to Al?
No, I don't, because I'm not going to argue numbers. We have Southern Vancouver Island Railway, which is a valid railway. The Washington group of companies run railways in the United States, and they've done all these figures. They've done the business plan. They know what's going to work, what isn't going to work. We've updated the study from the IBA study many times. We know this can work. And SVI has a plan where there's 4 pillars, of course, passenger and freight, passenger, freight, tourism, and commuter. But commuter is more the regional districts, and that's not our thing. But if they've got 3 of the 4 pillars, they can make it work. So, I mean, it's okay for anybody to doubt. I mean, that's fine. But, when you've got an operator that's been hanging on in the island, because this is a great opportunity on Vancouver Island, reducing greenhouse gases, getting these big trucks off the road. Do you know the millions of dollars that these municipalities have to pay with those big trucks going through their cities.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And you know, we can have both. We can have trails, we can have rail, you know, working side by side.
But if the trucks are on the rail, they still got to de-truck from the, they've got to have a cargo offloading place to get onto truck to get locally, obviously.
Yeah, it depends on, of course, where we're picking up. And, you know, now we have the barge facility. SBI owns that barge facility, and so then they can bring things, you know, there, put it on the barges, bring them over to Vancouver, connect with 5 different railways across the country. You know, it's an amazing system.
So when you say that there could be a parallel trail for bikes and pedestrians alongside it, what happens when it comes to the trestle bridges? How do you handle that sort of thing?
Well, you've got to find ways around.
Okay.
I mean, even if it's only bikes, you know, you're going to have
bikes
to
are flexible. They can do that. Yes. They haven't got to go in a straight line. They can make a little bend.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, what's the safety factor? You know, we're looking at some different ways of dealing with, you know, getting across the trestles, you know, a parallel bridge, or, you know, there are ways to deal with this. And there's a lot of money out there to be building trails, and there's many people who've been doing that. So, you know, I don't want to start talking about economics, because, you know, we've got it figured. We just did a business plan, updated it. We interviewed 450 people around there, and 70% of them want to keep rails with trails. And, you know, this is...
Was that a proper study with a polling about the public as a whole, 70%, or was it a selective?
We were encouraging people, like we had on our website.
It was a voluntary thing, okay,
Yeah, and so we had been aiming for 400. We got just over 400. Because there's a lot of people, you know, we have a lot of people who support rails with trails, more so than those that are against it. And, you know, the cost of pulling up the railway from Victoria to Courtenay and into Port Alberni is huge. You know, we haven't got the correct number, but I don't even know where we'd get that money to do that if we had to do that for rails and trails. And we never hear from people who are wanting to pull up the rail. Where are we going to get that money to do so?
So, Al, where would we get the money to do that?
A lot of scrap.
A lot of scrap.
Most steel right now is made from scrap, and that would certainly be part of it. But in actual fact, I don't know that there's any need to take up the tracks. Many trails I've seen in the States, they just, well, I've seen trails in the States where the tracks were not removed.
Yeah, but the law here is that if we're not using it as a rail, we have to bring up the track. And so once we do that, we'll never have tracks.
So the law says you can't just pave on top of it?
It's the BC Transportation Safety Board. There's a lot of laws that apply to railways. And so if we're not going to be using it, you know, at some point when we figure that we won't get the rail going, then that's a decision the board is going to have to make about how we're going to do that. But right now, you know, we haven't...
Is the cost of taking up the tracks in the business plan, Judith?
No, because we aren't at that point.
Okay. Is the business plan available for the public so that we can see?
It's on our website.
Okay. And does it cover the same areas as the IBI study?
Well, you know, part of it, the ICF, we don't run the railway.
Right.
We just made sure we got ourselves a good operator. But they presented to us, we know that this can work.
Just because I haven't actually seen that on the website, I don't know it's there. I'd be happy to have another look. But everyone, including probably several editorials on Times Colonist, and I don't know how many op-eds, have pointed out that there's no business case there.
So but why? You know, I mean, as the ICF and the owner of the railway, we don't need to have. I mean, obviously we have to have a business to be able to, you know, lease the track to our operator.
The operator will be the one that has to deal with the business side of it.
That's right.
How much subsidy? What is the cost estimate for getting the tracks and the bridges up to speed, up to safety level? What's the subsidy you're asking for from the federal and provincial governments?
Well, we haven't put that together because we've been waiting for the, you know, at one point when we were ready to go, we were doing the 21 million. Okay. But of course that has increased because
it was a few years ago.
It's been a few years ago. And so we know that's not. But, you know, when we did the study on the bridges and the trestles, we knew it wasn't that much. And we spent that $500,000 from the province doing the bridge and study. And things are in surprisingly good shape. Of course, you know, there's work to be done, of course. But, you know, it's not as bad as people want to make us think. And, you know, we can't do anything. I mean, SVI has been doing all of the upgrades to any crossings. Right. I mean, that's part of the law. That's part of their costs. Right. And, you know, the municipalities have to pay for those crossings, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So, you know, we are maintaining things on the railway, and because it is the law, and because we're, you know, even though we were told not to run the trains, but we still have to do the maintenance of the track. So
what would the cost be for going a conversion to a bikeway?
Yeah, well, the IBI study, just before we go to that, it estimated another 100 million to do the bridges. That's 2009. So it's there, that number's there.
Public. That's a 10-year-old, 9-year-old number.
Yeah, it's a 10-year-old number. That may or may not be correct.
Right.
That was their estimate.
Right.
But so that's there. But I don't believe any other numbers have been made public in terms of the business case for how many passengers, where are they coming from, where is the freight coming from, where is it going, how will it break even. The IBI study in 2009 said, with the best possible scenario for available cargo, you'd be lucky to break even with double what was available.
Right.
Yeah.
So does every business put their business plans and costs and projections on the website?
They do if they're public. They do if they're public.
But they're not, but this isn't public.
It's public asset.
But this isn't a public asset.
But
it is a public asset.
It's not a public asset. It belongs to the island.
Well, there were two things. The corridor is a public asset. The railway itself is a private company, right?
Well, it's owned by the Island Corridor Foundation, which is a foundation.
No, I mean the railway, the trains will be a private company. You own the track and the corridor, but the trains operating are a separate company, right?
Yeah, Southern Vancouver Island.
So you're saying it's their business plan?
It's their business plan.
Okay, which is why it's not public.
Yeah, it's confidential. It's like any other business.
But they're asking for public money for to get the track.
We're asking for public money because we own it, because we want to bring the train up to par, and then that's what we'll lease to SVI. Yeah. They support us, of course, in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Would there be an operating subsidy as well in their business plan on an annual basis, or is it self-sufficient? I'm not quite sure what year. Well, when the trains are running, would there be an annual subsidy needed as well per passenger to make it work? No, other than what we negotiated with VIA. Okay. And then they'd be paying Island Corridor Foundation, and then that's where we would be giving back to the communities, to First Nations, training trackmen, you know, that sort of thing. And would a bikeway have annual operating costs? Very limited. There's a certain amount of maintenance available, but going back to the public trust idea, you know, as a former director of a regional district, anybody coming to government asking for money, the first thing they're asked back for is show us the business plan, and we want detail, not generalities, not we'll do it next year or we're not there yet. If you're not there yet, well, maybe that's why it's difficult to get the subsidy. Public money requires. Yeah. So for a bikeway, all those road crossings you mentioned, they'd have to be made safe as well, would they? Well, the Galloping Goose basically has road crossings, and they've got an arrangement with the vehicles. The vehicles stop if there's a bicycle there. There's a couple of them got a traffic light, but it's a minimal cost. Okay. Yeah. If they couldn't cross a major highway, then you're into all sorts of things. If you look at the one in Esquimalt, on Admiral's Road, it costs millions, and it's not used. And there's a lot of people kind of upset about that. In Nanaimo as well, and in Langford. Believe it or not, we've got about all of 4 minutes left. Okay. I don't know how the time flies by. Yeah. You were going to add something. I just wanted to say that, you know, the Island Corridor Foundation is between the regional districts and the First Nations. So there's 5 regional districts, 6 directors, 1 from each, and a director at large. Same with First Nations. So that's who owns the Island Corridor Foundation, and the property is in the name of the Island Corridor Foundation. Right. And so, because representatives are from those districts, they have a say in the Constitution. They have a say in how this operates. So in that sense, it's a democratically operated, because we vote in councillors, and the councils put people on the board. Yeah, they put people on the board. It's regional districts, and there's a subtle distinction here. The regional districts and the native groups, the First Nations, they are the membership. The board are not the membership of the ICF. The regional districts and First Nations, they're a membership. And if they choose to buy into a trail or whatever, they can do that. They can change the Constitution to say
let's open it up and get the highest and best public use. And I believe that's what we have to do.
Right.
Yeah, but that'd be almost impossible to do,
Why?
to get everybody on side.
But
Like changing the
gotta do it right
Constitution of
now.
Canada. Well, right now, our Constitution tells us to build rails and trails, and that's what we're
Until the
doing.
membership says otherwise.
But you wrote the Constitution yourselves, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what people on the island wanted and still want,
Right.
as far as we know.
Yeah.
Like I said, at some point, we're going to have to go to people and say, you know, is this, but we're not at that point yet, as far as the board is
How
concerned.
soon are you hoping that this might get sorted out and some money starts flowing and work starts happening?
Well, we're waiting for provincial support in writing.
Yeah.
You know, the Premier did announce that he's supporting 100% behind, and so once we have that, then we do the applications to the federal government, and hopefully it'll be quick, because there's lots of money in the infrastructure
So is
fund.
the province doing some study of its own now then?
No.
No?
No.
So what are you waiting for from the province?
We just need a letter of support to say that they're going to support our application to Canada, that they're going to be, you know, putting money in as
I
well.
think what's interesting, and I'm sure Judith knows this, but what the province is doing is they've said, we're not just going to look at rail, we're going to look at transportation, all options, and we're going to see what a plan might look like. Now, I think the Malahat is something like, I think it's something like 20 to 25,000 vehicles in a single day.
Yeah.
The E&N 40,000 a year. The scale is just
We've got
so different.
a minute left.
Yeah.
20 seconds wrap up of your vision, your hope for this.
You know, we know we can make this a success. We know we can increase ridership. We've done it in the past. We can continue to do that. We can do freight. You know, this is open to the public to build trails, and we say, welcome, come, work with us. You know, the land's there. Let's do this together. You know, connect communities, make parks, and that's where we're going to go.
Good. 20-second wrap up.
Well, I believe the foundation should, membership of the foundation should look at the Constitution and see that it is actually limiting something that could be absolutely world class and fantastic, as opposed to a railway that might limp along, and it would never be a world class railway. The rail geometry wouldn't allow that. It just simply cannot do that.
Well, thank you to both of you. You're both showing leadership on this, so thank you so much on this one. So there you go, viewers.
We don't think there is a debate.
There's a debate. There's definitely a debate about the future vision of the corridor. The fact that we have the corridor is a real blessing for all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so thank you to both our guests for watching the show. My name is Guy Dauncey. This has been the show Change the World. Tune in next week for more scintillating discussion, and thanks for watching.